What's this? Where did you get military-grade optics? Like this civilian ID looks expired, open the whole bag right now. The young checkpoint guards didn't hesitate. They dumped everything onto the cold metal inspection table. The woman standing before them didn't flinch, didn't protest. She just stood there in complete silence, her eyes steady and forward until a senior officer happened to pass by the checkpoint. He froze mid-step when he saw the patch lying among the scattered items. Then he leaned in close and whispered urgently, "Stand down. Don't touch anything else. That's Delta Force." Her name was Maya Johnson, 42 years old, a former Special Forces technician now dressed in faded civilian work clothes, a worn denim jacket that had seen better days carrying a dusty gray backpack that looked like it had traveled through half the world. She arrived at the Fort Bragg checkpoint around noon on a Tuesday, holding a temporary visitor pass to consult on a classified communications issue. The young gate soldiers, Private Torres and Sergeant Blake, checked her identification card and immediately became suspicious. "Civilian contractor pass expired 2 weeks ago, ma'am. We need to search everything, open the bag completely." Maya didn't argue, didn't make excuses. She unzipped it calmly and methodically. No complaints, no attitude, no unnecessary words. Out came her tools, one by one. A compact soldering iron digital signal analyzer, a folded military map marked with grid coordinates, and a heavy logbook filled with dense technical notes. Sergeant Blake noticed the military-grade equipment spread across the table and grew more suspicious by the second. "Where did you get this gear? You're not cleared for any of this equipment." They began searching more aggressively, their hands moving faster, ripping through inner compartments, tearing at the lining, searching for contraband or weapons. From a hidden pocket, sewn into the bag's interior, fell a folded cloth with a patch embroidered in dark blue thread, a sword piercing through lightning bolts. The unmistakable Delta Force insignia. Maya said nothing, just looked straight ahead with the kind of patience that only comes from someone who'd been through much worse interrogations. What the guards saw was a suspicious civilian with expired paperwork and military equipment. She shouldn't have. What they didn't realize was that they were looking at someone whose name had been deliberately erased from official records. For reasons they couldn't begin to imagine, the Delta Force unit had been disbanded after a classified operation went wrong. Officially, all members were listed as killed in action. Unofficially, a few had survived, but chose to disappear rather than face the political consequences of a mission that had never officially happened. Maya was one of those shadows living in the space between official existence and complete anonymity. Right then, Colonel David Chen, the base senior officer, happened to pass by the checkpoint. He was heading to a routine briefing when he, Arza, caught a glimpse of something that made his blood run cold. The Delta Force patch lying on the inspection table. He stopped, immediately stepped forward slowly, his eyes fixed on the emblem he hadn't seen in over a decade, and whispered to the guards, "Stand down. Do not touch anything else. That's Delta Force." The guards looked confused, but they knew enough to follow a colonel's direct order. I have to say, if you've ever seen someone go from invisible to undeniable, in an instant, Colonel Chen immediately pulled Maya aside into the interior checkpoint office, leaving the confused guards outside. Private Torres and Sergeant Blake whispered to each other, "Delta Force, that unit isn't even listed in current databases anymore. Why would a colonel care about some old patch inside the office?" Chen spoke to Maya directly. "We thought your entire team was killed in action during the 2012 operation in the Syrian highlands." Maya responded with steady calm. "That's what the official records say, but some of us walked out of that situation. We weren't supposed to exist after that." She placed her logbook on the desk. It was filled with encrypted notes, satellite frequencies, and detailed signal interference patterns. Chen studied a recent entry that made him pause. "This interference signature matches the anomalies we've been chasing for 3 months." "How do you know about our classified training operations?" Maya replied matter-of-factly. "Because there's a backdoor signal being broadcast to your communications network. Someone is deliberately interfering with your systems. It's not equipment failure." Chen leaned back in his chair. Why didn't you come forward with this information sooner? Why the expired visitor pass and the unofficial approach? Maya's expression didn't change, because the last time I tried to help officially, they erased my name from every database. Delta Force doesn't exist. I don't exist. But the threats to your operations are very real, the colonel quietly signaled to a tech officer through the window. I need you to verify this handwriting against any legacy unit documentation we have. Look specifically for call sign Nighthawk. Meanwhile, Maya remained seated completely calm, as if she'd been through this verification process many times before 20 minutes later, the tech officer returned with a folder marked Classified Historical. Sir, the handwriting is a perfect match. This is definitely Nighthawk. She was the communications intelligence specialist who designed the encryption protocols we still use today. Chen looked at Maya with new understanding. You built the systems that are currently protecting this base. I built the foundation, but someone has figured out how to exploit the weaknesses I couldn't solve 12 years ago. The colonel realized the full scope of what was happening. You're telling me that our current security vulnerabilities stem from incomplete solutions in your original Delta Force work. I'm telling you that whoever is targeting your communications knows exactly how Delta Force systems work. They're using our own techniques against you. Chen understood the implications immediately. If someone had access to Delta Force methodologies, it meant either classified information had been compromised or another surviving member of the unit had gone rogue. Who else from your unit survived? Maya was quiet for a long moment. I hoped I was the only one, but the signature patterns in your signal interference, they look familiar. The colonel made a decision that would change everything. What do you need to fix this? 48 hours of access to your communications control systems and a small team of technicians who can follow instructions without asking questions. Done. I understand if you've ever been forced to stay quiet until your knowledge couldn't be ignored anymore. Over the next 2 days, Maya worked with a closed team of 3 trusted technical officers that Colonel Chen had handpicked. She moved through the base's communication systems like someone who designed them personally, because in many ways she had Lieutenant Rodriguez, one of the younger techs, initially doubted her capabilities. Sir, are we really trusting our entire communications program to someone with an expired visitor pass? But after watching Maya work for 6 hours, his skepticism vanished completely. She installed counter-signal patches that blocked unauthorized access attempts. She reprogrammed fallback frequencies using encryption methods that weren't in any current manual. Most importantly, she identified the exact source of the interference. Lieutenant Rodriguez whispered to Colonel Chen. Sir, she's not just fixing our system, she built half of it. The core architecture we've been using, it's all her design. Meanwhile, rumors spread throughout the base that woman at the checkpoint last week. She's some kind of legend. Heard she was Delta Force, thought that unit was mythology. Colonel Chen personally vouched for her. That doesn't happen. On the 3rd day, Maya's work paid off in the most dramatic way possible during a routine training mission. 3 communication satellites simultaneously lost signal and began transmitting erratic patterns that would have resulted in complete blackout. But Maya's new protocols automatically engaged, maintaining stable connection until manual control could be re-established. Without her intervention, the base would have lost critical communications capability and possibly compromised operational security. That evening, Colonel Chen called a base security briefing with all senior officers present. 3 days ago, we nearly lost multiple communication channels to what we thought was equipment failure. It wasn't failure, it was deliberate sabotage using techniques specifically designed to exploit our systems. He gestured to Maya, who was standing quietly at the back of the room, thanks to Maya Johnson call. Signed, Nighthawk from Delta Force. This base is not only still operational, but now has the most advanced communication security protocols in the military. A major in the front row asked, Sir, Delta Force was disbanded over a decade ago. How do we verify her credentials? Colonel Chen pulled out a classified folder. Because I was there when her unit saved 47 soldiers during the Syrian Highlands operation. I was one of those soldiers. The room fell completely silent. Nighthawk didn't just design our current systems, She risked her life to keep those systems operational under enemy fire while her unit provided cover for a full evacuation. He turned to Maya and, without hesitation, saluted her in front of the entire command staff. "Ma'am, it's an honor to finally thank you properly." But Maya's response surprised everyone. "Colonel, I didn't come back for thanks. I came back because I recognized the attack pattern. Someone else from my unit is responsible for these intrusions." The room erupted in whispers. A rogue Delta Force operative was a scenario nobody had considered, who I have my suspicions. But I'll need more time to be certain. What I can tell you is that this won't be the last attempt. Delta Force was trained to be persistent. Colonel Chen made an immediate decision. "Ma'am, I'm offering you a permanent consultant position, full security clearance restored. Help us stay ahead of whoever is doing this." Maya considered the offer. "I'll help you catch them, but I work alone, and I don't want my name in any official databases. Some shadows are better left that way. They deserve more if you've seen someone get their honor restored when they never asked for it." Maya refused any official rank reinstatement or permanent base assignment. "I didn't come back for recognition or career restoration. I just didn't want another unit erased the way mine was." Instead, she returned to the base once a week, always in civilian clothes, to quietly inspect new communication systems and monitor for intrusion attempts. The technical team began referring to her simply as Miss Johnson, but their tone was one of complete respect. Outside the checkpoint booth where she'd first been searched, a small steel plaque was quietly installed on the back wall in honor of the one who didn't need orders to protect us. Delta Force lives on Maya sometimes paused there on her way out, but never stayed long. She preferred to work without ceremony one day. Private Torres, the guard who'd searched her bag so aggressively, approached her as she was leaving. "Ma'am, I want to apologize for how we treated you at the checkpoint." Maya gave the smallest of nods. "You were doing your job. I respect that, but we should have known you couldn't have known. That was the point." 6 months later, the signal interference stopped completely. Whether Maya had identified and stopped the rogue operative, or whether her security improvements had simply made further attacks impossible, nobody knew for certain, but the base's security systems now served as a model for installations across the country. A year later, when new technical officers arrived at Fort Bragg, they were told, "If you ever encounter a problem that seems impossible to solve, there's a civilian consultant who comes in on Wednesdays. Ask respectfully, and she might help you understand systems you didn't know existed today." Military cybersecurity protocols across all branches use techniques developed by someone whose name appears in no official roster. Someone who chose to remain in the shadows rather than reclaim a spotlight she'd never wanted. Be like Maya. Help people, regardless of whether you get official credit. Protect institutions, even when those institutions have forgotten you. And when they finally recognize your value, stay humble enough to keep working quietly. Because the most important security is often provided by people who prefer to remain invisible. True honor is quiet. If you've seen real respect that doesn't need words, sometimes the real heroes don't come through the front gate with fanfare and ceremonies. They come through checkpoints with ripped bags, worn notebooks, and names that were erased from official systems. Maya Johnson didn't come back for glory or recognition. She came back to prevent a catastrophe because she'd already seen too many good people lost to preventable mistakes in a world that forgets. She reminds us that just because someone's not in the system doesn't mean they're not essential to the story. The most dangerous assumption is that the person with expired credentials doesn't have current knowledge. The most valuable expertise often belongs to people who no longer seek official positions, and the most important protection comes from guardians who prefer to work in shadows, look beyond the paperwork, respect the people who've walked away from recognition. And remember that the most critical knowledge is often carried by those who've chosen silence over spotlight. We need to protect our legends, especially the ones who'd rather be left alone. She spoke through action. If this story changed how you see quiet protectors, if you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe for more.